is National Siblings Day. Well, I have a sibling, so I guess I can wish my brother Greg a happy Siblings Day. And I have absolutely no clue what else you're supposed to do on National Siblings Day. So I don't know, maybe you have a sibling, maybe you have a dozen siblings, or maybe you're an only child. Well, regardless, I will wish you a happy Tuesday. I also would like to say that the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, once again, I am back. I am Jeff McAleer, and I'm your host here at The Daily Dope, as well as happening to be the grand poobah of the GamingGang.com. So, welcome aboard if you are a returning visitor. Thank you so much for following along with The Daily Dope as well as the Gaming Gang. If this is your first time catching the show, well, feel free, have a seat, relax. Things are pretty casual here in the Duct Tape Studios. So I will point out that there is chat available through YouTube. It is not on the screen. Kind of one of the ways that I keep some of the funky commenters at bay. But I am following the chat here. So by all means, if you want to chime in, say hello, feel free. I do have an interview that I shot at C2E2 on Sunday that is coming up after the news. It does run a little more than a half hour. I'm going to point that out. And it is with Ian Starcher and Eric Simon from Ulysses, North America. And I'll talk about that a little bit more after the news before I jump on into it. Anyway, do want to also mention that there is no show tomorrow. As I pointed out yesterday, my best friend Elliot Miller, his father passed. So that was over the weekend, and services are tomorrow. So, of course, kind of being a member of the Miller family, I will be there for the family, offering my my deepest condolences. Anyway, moving right along. So I've got a little bit of news today, not a ton of news. Some pretty interesting news pieces, though. And the first one is from Ares Games, and it's a miniatures game announcement. In fact, pretty heavy on the miniatures news today. And I wish I had more images to share because this sounds kind of cool, because they have announced a miniatures edition of Battlestar Galactica. That's right, and I've got the dope. Ares Games has announced a miniatures game, Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles, which is set to be shown off at this year's Gen Con. Italian board game publisher Ares Games will publish and distribute worldwide a Starship Combat miniature game based on the Battlestar Galactica TV series, including both the classical, thought it was just called classic, but I guess they're calling it classical, and reimagined settings. Created by the same designers of the popular Wings of Glory and Sails of Glory game systems, Andrea Angelino and Andrea Mainini? I think it's Mainini? The Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles game will be first presented to the public at Gen Con 2018, August 2nd through the 5th in Indianapolis, Indiana. A release date has not been announced yet. Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles will feature ready-to-play, painted, and assembled miniatures with a special base to support its unique game mechanics. Players will take control of one or more Colonial and Cylon ships and face each other in furious dogfights and many other different kinds of missions. The game will feature innovative mechanics, allowing players to simulate space combat using simple and intuitive rules to imitate the unique dynamics of the battles in the TV show. The Battlestar Galactica license agreement with Universal Brand Development includes both the classic series, created by Glenn A. Larson in the late 1970s, and the reimagined series developed by Ronald D. Moore and David Eck, which aired until 2010. As I mentioned, wish I had a little more I could show you visually. All we basically have is the logo, as well as a shot of, it looks like a couple of Vipers taking on a Cylon Raider, and the image isn't very big, so we don't have a lot of detail, but I can tell that those are really not miniatures. They are actually kind of 3D cardboard, sort of a side shot and a top-down shot. So I'm assuming that is just some playtest materials that they're messing around with, that we will actually get real minis, not these sort of cardboard-looking miniatures. And it does look like this is small scale, so I don't think we're going to see, battle stars or Cylon bases or anything like that. But it should be pretty cool. Pretty cool. I would be very interested to check this out. All right, and IDW Games has their second release in their Outpost line hitting stores, or perhaps it already has hit stores, and I've got the dope on Outpost Amazon. Welcome to Outpost 2, located deep in the heart of the Amazon. Congratulations! Being appointed to this outpost means you are one of the finest minds in the field, in your field of study. While you are here, it is your team's job to collect and report on the various exotic plants and creatures native to the area. Unfortunately, you've arrived during troubled times. A recent report shows that the locals have been moving away from the riverbanks over the last few weeks, and night vision surveillance has captured photos that seem too strange to be true. Now you must make your own way down the river to the coast, where a rescue ship is waiting. Along the way, you must investigate and verify these images. Take your crew and head down the river, making sure to capture as many specimens as possible. But be careful, the locals have been leaving this area for a reason. The trip will be long, and you'll need to make sure you balance your scientific curiosity against the need for safety. Good luck to you and your team. You'll need it. Outpost Amazon is for 2 to 6 players, ages 12 and up, and plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. The game, as I mentioned, should be available right now, and it does carry an MSRP of $19.99. So, I have to ask, I'm pretty curious, because the first Outpost game, Outpost Siberia, got pretty well savaged. I don't know of anybody who thought it was a good game, and most people have said that it is a broken design. So, I'm curious if IDW kind of went back to the drawing table and revamped the mechanics for this second offering in their lineup of Outpost games, or if they just went ahead and released the same, because I believe they're supposed to all kind of use the same mechanics. I'm wondering if they just went ahead and said, hey, well, you know what, the hell with it. We're just going to release the second game, and we're not going to address any of the gameplay issues from the first. I don't know. I have absolutely no clue. I would hope they've addressed the gameplay issues. All right, moving right along. As I mentioned, it seems like we're going pretty heavy on miniatures news today. And Rebel Minis and 2-Hour War Games have teamed up to create a Cthulhu Mythos skirmish level miniatures game, and it seems as if it's got a dash of role-playing included. And it's entitled Lovecraft's Revenge. So here is the dope. Are you ready to play a game? How about a game that'll scare you right out of your skin? A game right from the grave? How about a game that pits you against powers not of this world? Powers that watch from the shadows, then slither towards you from the darkest corners of your perception. That's not fair. You're right. Lovecraft's Revenge isn't fair. It puts you right into your own story by horror writer H.P. Lovecraft. You could explore a deserted town where the doors and windows seem to open themselves. You could scour the university library for clues of a lost tome of eldritch lore. You could find yourself in some wasteland miles from home and face to face with monsters that will rip your mind apart just by looking at you. So yes, it's not fair. Inside Lovecraft's Revenge, you'll find over a dozen professions and attributes, making your terror seeker truly unique. A system that rewards or penalizes your characters for their performance. Easy to learn game mechanics that complement the story, not distract from it. Light bookkeeping campaign system that lets you tie your adventures together. Insanity rules that are quick and easy to use, but that will mess with your character's head, and maybe your own. I highly doubt it's going to mess with your own. Multiple locations that step right out of Lovecraft's stories: cities, haunted towns, colleges, waterfronts, and even graveyards. Face over 30 different creatures and deities, from deep ones to ghouls to shoggoths, and of course, Cthulhu in all his tentacled greatness. The book, a sample adventure, the book, a sample adventure to throw you right into the game, and much, much more. The game generates where you explore, what you encounter, and whether it shakes your hand or attempts to devour you, soul and all. After a while, you might begin believing the game is playing itself, and that's when things get really creepy. I'm not buying that, sorry. The game's playing itself? Okay. Welcome to your own horror story. Welcome to Lovecraft's Revenge. The PDF of Lovecraft's Revenge, as well as a brand new supplement, which includes the Dreamlands and 3 adventures, which is called Deadly Dreams, are both available right now for $9.95 through Drive-Thru RPG. Have to admit, this does seem kind of interesting. 2 Hour War Games has a pretty good reputation of putting together some pretty solid games, if just not real flashy, chrome-wise, but this could be fairly interesting, although I kind of get a kick out of some of the little flavor that the game plays itself. It's going to mess with your head. It's like, no, it won't. Get out of here. Give me a break. Their tabletop games cannot be scary. Sorry, I have talked about that before, even back on the podcast, back in the early years of the Gaming Gang. Elliot and I would discuss this, and I would always point out, tabletop games do not induce fear. Impossible. Unless maybe a role-playing game. That's about the only way you can really scare people. People don't get scared from miniatures games or board games. It doesn't happen, Dooley. Doesn't happen, Dooley. Anyway, all right, before I move on to the next news piece, I see Russell Higgins is popping in. Happy Tuesday, he says to me. And of course, Russell, a very happy Tuesday right back at you. All right, so as I mentioned, lots of miniature stuff today. So my next news piece is also miniatures related. As Skirmisher, hang on a second. I need a sip here. Boy, oh boy. Wow. Getting all tongue-tied. Okay. All right, so let's try that again. Skirmisher Publishing. What was I starting to say? Skimmishin? Yes, I like when I'm playing historical war games, I always throw my skimmishin out in front of my troops. Duh. Skirmisher Publishing has a new fast-playing miniature rule system, which is now available, and I've got the dope. Yes, because Ragnarok Age of Wolves is a skirmish-level game for novice and experienced tabletop players alike that emulates the desperate small-scale actions that might result during the unending winter that is the first stage of the Viking apocalypse, otherwise known as Ragnarok. As crops fail and food grows scarce, banditry becomes rife as formerly good folk are driven to extremes and bad men take advantage of chaos and hardship. Monsters haunt the wilds and prowl the outskirts of palisaded settlement and isolated steading alike. Hurdle folk, never easy neighbors but generally peaceful if left undisturbed, now move to defend their sacred groves and to seize places once devoted to gods who now seem absent. Trolls and their ilk gather. Marauders sweep brigands and more into their bands, and whispers abound of gaunt giant wolves and worse, glimpsed in the swirl of a snowstorm. And where such beasts in everlasting winter hold sway, the frost giants cannot be far behind. Ragnarok Age of Wolves is a set of fun, fast-playing, and evocative rules that allow you to fight out the desperate battles and skirmishes of the Fimbulrintin. I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce this word. Fimblvintr. Fimbulrintin. Obviously, it's some sort of Scandinavian word. Anywho, Ragnarok also includes a 4-part campaign to take you through the struggle of one man trying to preserve something of his honor, his life, and the people and creatures who depend on him for survival. Finally, we've given you everything you need to expand the strife to include the other creatures and sagas of the Ragnarok. The 84-page Ragnarok Age of Wolves is available right now in PDF from Drive-Thru RPG for $9.95. So, as I've already covered in this news piece and in the previous news piece for Lovecraft's Revenge, I do want to mention that if you swing over to Drive-Thru RPG, please stop by gaminggang.com first, click on one of our drive-thru banners, and of course, if you make a purchase, we get a small portion of that sale. And I say it all the time, those little bits all add up and really help us out, really helps keep the Gaming Gang and the Daily Dope around. I see Rob Moffat's chiming in. Hello, Rob. So, as far as the Ragnarok game, this looks pretty cool, or I should say sounds pretty cool. I wasn't able to get much of a sneak peek anywhere, though. All right, so our last item of news is that the latest issue of Casual Game Insider is now available. And here's the dope. Battle for control of the ultimate fairy tale in the grim forest. Plus, new word games for Scrabble lovers or haters, tips for tidying up your game collection, comparing game acquisition behavior to animal personalities, video games making the switch to cardboard, and Smirk and Dagger's history of backstabbing games, and expansion into less aggressive titles. This issue also features reviews of Sagrada Pingo Pingo, Photosynthesis, Paramedics Clear, Dreams, and Welcome to the Dungeon. You can score the 60-page Spring 2018 issue in PDF for $3.99, or you can get print and PDF for $6.99. Do want to say, Casual Game Insider, I like the magazine, and then sometimes I don't like the magazine, and it's kind of weird. And I'll give you a reason why. So when they're doing articles and they're kind of doing reviews and things like that, they do talk about a lot of games that I personally think, yes, that is a casual game. That's considered a casual game. And they have, this kind of in-depth thought process on what makes a casual game. And of course, one of the things is it has to play in less than an hour. Yeah, that's great. So I think, yeah, all right. So a lot of things they talk about, yeah, they're casual games. But then when they come to like their awards that they do, then it's all like filler games. And all right, so they had 3 games in the running for their 2017 Casual Game of the Year. And 2 of them were like super filler games. Like one was Go Nuts for Donuts. It's like, seriously? And I had been asked to submit 3 games that I thought were great casual games for 2017. And a couple of mine were Hot Shots from Fireside Games. That is a casual game. The other was Lovecraft Letter. I thought that was a really, really well done game, and everybody I know loves playing it, just like Hot Shots. And then it was sort of like, Go Nuts for Donuts? Come on, man, really? It was sort of, all right, who was paying who off here? I'm not saying that was the case with Chris James, but it's kind of weird that Casual Game Insider talks about games that, yes, I would consider to be casual, and then when it comes down to them doing awards, it's sort of like, no. Yeah, something just seemed weird about that whole process. Anywho, but I mean, it's not a bad magazine. It's a little shilly. You can tell there's a little cash passing hands for people to mention stuff. But anywho, it's a magazine, so you know, it's always with a grain of salt. All right, so that was it for the news today. Now, there is something else I do want to talk about a little bit before I jump into sharing the interview that I did with Ulisses North America. And it's River Horse Games, or whatever River Horse is. I think it's River Horse Games. And something is just really, really fishy about all these Kickstarters they've been launching. And they just started this Terminator, I think it's Rise of the Terminator Kickstarter. And it just started. And it's right on the heels of their Pacific Rim Kickstarter ending, which was right on the heels of their Highlander Kickstarter ending. Something smells off when you have a company, I mean, we're talking one Kickstarter ends and the next day a new one starts, because a company can't have 2 Kickstarters running at the same time. And the only game that I'm aware of that River Horse has released is their Dark Crystal game, which I hear is a steaming pile of crap. The only thing good about it, supposedly, are the 4 miniatures that are included. The rest of it is just a disaster. It's a broken design, and so on and so forth. So yeah, something just doesn't seem right about this. And I'm seeing this Terminator Kickstarter is, all these different outlets are like, oh, check out the Terminator Kickstarter. And it's every one of these River Horse Kickstarters, they're like really ballyhooing, and no one's out there mentioning, wait a second, something's wrong. Because this company, when they did their Dark Crystal game, it was way late. And they had a hard time fulfilling that project. And now they've got 3 Kickstarters right on top of each other. I don't know. Anyway, so that was just sort of something I wanted to mention. Something doesn't seem right about this River Horse company. So, anywho, all right. So if you're wondering what's going on the rest of this week. So as I mentioned, tomorrow there will be no show. Because of I'm going to Elliot Miller's dad's services. And then Thursday, I know that there is a big box of Ulysses North American product heading my way. Now, what exactly is in it, I don't know, but I believe it's a lot of stuff. So I have a pretty good idea that the Torg Eternity core book is going to be in this package. So on Thursday, I am going to take a first look at that, because this package is supposed to arrive tomorrow. And it's like, I think it's like 27 pounds. So you figure that's quite a few hardcover books is my guess. Then on Friday, I am going to take a first look at Trailhead, which is going to be coming to Kickstarter. I think it's coming in late spring, maybe early summer, and it's from a company called Two Moles, and it is a wilderness survival game. So, yes, in fact, it says it's the wilderness survival game. And it comes in this little tin, And I think this is through Game Crafter. I'm not positive if it is or not, but it does look kind of interesting, and it is for ages 10 and up. So I think that will fit in very nicely with a family fun Friday. All right, so that's what's cooking. Then on next Wednesday, I know there's no Wargame Wednesday this week, but next week I will be reviewing At Any Cost Metz 1870 from GMT. So for the Wargamers out there, if you're catching this episode, because I know a lot of times most of the Wargamers only tune in for the Wednesday shows, I will be reviewing that. And I've got some other stuff cooking, other stuff in the pipeline. So I'm really intrigued to see what's coming from Ulisses North America. Because at C2E2, which is held downtown Chicago, it was this past weekend. If you caught yesterday's show, I talked a little bit about it. Ian Starcher from Ulisses North America had reached out, kind of understood that I was going to be downtown, and he was actually in for the Diamond Retailers Summit, and said, "Hey, I'd love to get together. I love your website. I've caught your videos," and he was saying really, really nice things about the gaming gang as well as the videos on the YouTube channel, both the Daily Dope and some of the other videos I've done in the past, right? And I could tell that he really had delved into the website. It wasn't just one of these, "Oh yeah, like your website," like I get from a lot of people, especially when they're trying to get me to cover their Kickstarters, you know? "Oh, love all the stuff you do." It's like, well, then you would probably say, "Hello, Jeff," in the email, as opposed to just be like, "Hi, blank, love your website." Anyway, so I did go downtown on Sunday and sat down and did an interview with both Ian as well as Eric Simon, who does social media for Ulisses North America. Pretty cool interview. As with most interviews, I kind of joke around a bit, but you're going to be able to kick back. I got to point out, this interview is fairly long. It's a little more than 30 minutes. It's about 34 minutes. So if you're watching live, I got to be very honest. The interview is going to be the rest of the show. Now, I am going to be hanging around for people if they want to kind of chat. So it's not like I'm going to throw the interview on and then I'm going to go like leave for a half hour and come back. So, but I was going to say it is going to be pretty much the rest of the show. And then, of course, I'll wrap up after the interview. So if you have no interest in Ulisses North America, then I can understand if you want to tune out. But it is a good interview, and we do talk about the new Torg Eternity, as well as the Dark Eye, which is a fantasy role-playing game that has been around for decades. Huge in Europe. I mean, it outsells D&D and Pathfinder by quite a bit in Europe. We're just not familiar with it too much here in the US. But we are starting to see some English language The Dark Eye product arrive, and it looks pretty cool. And we also talk about the upcoming Warhammer 40K role-playing game, Wrath and Glory. So I'm sure there are folks out there who are pretty pumped about that, seeing that they have not had a Warhammer 40K role-playing game since Fantasy Flight Games and Games Workshop kind of went their own ways. So without further ado, let me share the interview I did with both Ian Starcher and Eric Simon this past Sunday at C2E2 at the, oh my gosh, McCormick Place. I almost said the Rosemont Horizon. I have no idea why I was thinking. There's another show coming to the Rosemont. Duh. But yes, it was at McCormick Place on Sunday. So kick back, let me load that video up, and away. Here at C2E2, amazingly enough, we're going to talk about role-playing games. And C2E2 is not necessarily a gaming convention, but I'm being joined by Ian Starcher as well as Eric Simon. So Mr. Simon Says you've got to follow along this video. And we're going to talk a lot about Ulisses North America. So first of all, Ian, tell us a little bit about Ulisses North American, because a lot of gamers out there are probably familiar with the German entity of Ulisses.
Sure. Well, Ulysses Spiel, which is a very, very successful company in Europe, headquartered out of Germany, is owned by a fellow named Marcus, gamer.
No last name, just Marcus. Kind of like Bono.
Yeah, exactly. And well, Marcus is a gamer, but he's also a great business person. And when he decided to enter the U.S. market, he set up Ulysses North America. And then the first thing was done there was take the number one role-playing game in Germany, called
which would be Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, they have about 4% of a 96% market that the Dark Eye has. And then, but what he did was really great. We brought that game over, but he hired American designers to design American games. A lot of them had were great games in the day, so brought them up to contemporary rule design, but kept the popular IP, the setting.
We're going to talk about a few of those in just a couple of moments.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, how new is Ulysses North America? Fairly new, right?
Yeah, so we've been working for about 3 years. About 3 years ago is when they started doing the initial translation of the current 5th edition of the Dark Eye, and so that ended up being the first release. And that kickstarted 2 years ago, and since then we've had numerous Kickstarters, both in the Dark Eye and several of the other products that we're going to be talking about today.
And we're going to talk more in depth about the Dark Eye in just a few moments, but what's really hot right now, what's really big for Ulysses, is not necessarily the Dark Eye at the moment. It's something else. It's the return of a classic role-playing game. How about sharing that info with us, Ian?
Sure. Well, that's Torg Eternity, and some of you have been around for a while may remember it. But it's a setting that's kind of it's a multi-universe, but not different in the sense of like, oh, I go here, as much as it's a cosmos is what they call them, that different bad guys, High Lords, invaded Earth and brought their own reality with them. So you've got a reality that's like dinosaurs, a living land in North America, and you've got kind of a cyber religious oppressive and rebels in that.
There's my reality that I live in.
Yeah, there's what's called
alternate reality. Right?
Yeah, and what's fun about it is, if like say for example you're from the magical area. You can, as you're moving around, if you go to a high tech, you're not going to be as successful with casting your spells, and the reverse. So that's, that's a really fun part about it. And we kickstarted that last year. For 2017, it was the #1 RPG launch of a Kickstarter.
Nice.
Yeah, we're pretty happy about that. It's been nominated for Best Role-Playing Game of the Year for a 2017 game.
How much did that cost you in bribes?
Well, we have disclosure agreements that we have to sign with that.
Professor Fun, we wrote him a check and he said, this game is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great game. It's a lot of fun. And that's really the important part is it playable? Is it fun? And, being successful on a Kickstarter, of course we're happy. People happy after they bought it and we've delivered it, which we've done, that's really what matters, right? So, and now it's now landing in retail stores. So we have, it should be available.
The core book.
Yeah, the core book and some of the accessories they should be at your friendly local hobby shop right now.
And as far as Torg Eternity, if memory serves me correctly, Torg originally came out about the same time as Rifts did. And I believe there are a lot of people who have a misconception that they're both sort of the same game. Eric, how would you address that? Because I know some people are like, oh yeah, Palladium Rifts and Torg, yeah, they're kind of the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so Rifts is definitely another multi-genre game, and so I think that both of those coming out at the same time did kind of confuse people. It said, all right, well, there's two multi-genre games, they must be the same. But really the difference is very much what Ian was talking about. It's the idea that we're not just dimension hopping, we are having those dimensions invade us, and they're taking over and converting Earth to their realities, and there's this sense of competing realities, and so we travel, the geography of Earth ends up being a very important part of the multidimensionality. So the Nile Empire is the pulp comic sort of action.
Indiana Jones.
Exactly. And so it's a very, if you want to play pulp serials, you play in the Nile Empire, which happens to be, as you might guess, in Northern Africa. But then if you want to play nowadays the very sort of almost Resident Evil kind of bioterror and future thing with corporate things and Electric Samurai, then you go to Pan Pacifica, and so that's along the eastern coast of Asia. And so these realities actually matter where they are on Earth. So the Living Land, which is what we're kickstarting right now, is in North America. So the fact that there's this dinosaur and reptile people sort of reality, it matters not only because that's cool by itself, but also because it's destroying Detroit. And that's interesting.
But wouldn't you say Detroit has already been destroyed? We didn't necessarily need... I'm kidding. Just joking, folks in Michigan. It's just a joke, just a gag.
So if you think it's bad now, wait till you see what happens with the Living Land.
And the one nice thing about Torg 2 is that players and game masters can decide, hey, I really like this setting, I like this area. They don't have to dip their toes into everything.
Right, it's really, you can play what you want, but also, as Ian was saying, you can then bring your Storm Knights, the heroes of the game, you can bring them from any of these other cosms. So if you want to play the Elven Archer from Isle, I can do that in the Living Land. I'm going to have some challenges. I might disconnect if I'm trying to do something magical, but that's a risk that everybody takes, and I can still play that flavor of character that I want to play.
Now, as you mentioned, you've got a Kickstarter going on right now, and it's for Torg, the Living Land, and it's sort of a Land of Time Forgot sort of setting. Is Doug McClure part of this?
No, what it is, it's not as much... I mean, of course, it has that element if you want to look at it that way, but it's the land that now has showed up versus the
land that time is now remembering.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, or regretting. So you have these areas that have been completely transformed, and there is some parallel a little bit. Like if there was something bad, like an area that was radioactive or something, it'll have a similar-ish effect in the Living Land, but it's a different place. And like you said, I mean, you don't want to go to the West Coast anymore. Not unless you're willing to deal with some things. And you've got rivers in New York that are now inhabited by some pretty scary critters. And so there's
no spoilers. Make sure people buy the products.
Yeah. So your characters can be, in this situation in North America, they could be core Earth people. They could be people that got kind of formed into cave people, cavemen and whatever. They could be these lizard reptile humanoids that are rebelling against their evil overlord. Right. So it gives you tons of, you're not just, I'll be the dwarf, you be the elf, I'll be the rogue, I'll be the fighter. It's wide open.
So I get to play the kind of character I want to play, not the kind of character the rules tell me I can play.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I personally liked about it is I can be whatever I want to be, but you can be. It's not like, hey, I want to play this character, so we're playing this game, and therefore you have to be the elf. No, I don't know. You be, the pulp hero, or whatever, cyberpunkish. I mean, there's a lot of different choices.
So currently arriving in stores is the Torg Eternity core book. What else is hitting the friendly local gaming stores?
Well, eventually everything. We start out with a Kickstarter, but we move pretty rapidly to get it into stores. We actually have a program with this Kickstarter that's called the Retailer Advantage Program that really helps the collaborate with retail stores instead of the common attitude which occurs of retail.
A lot of retailers don't like Kickstarter.
Yeah,
we know that.
Yeah, and in some cases absolutely legitimate. I'm not, but we flip that coin entirely intentionally. And it's, again, so everything that's as cool as we can, those retailers want to participate, and we make that uber easy, can participate.
I do understand that you're going to have a pretty quick turnaround on this Kickstarter, but say somebody's watching
today, right now, and they're like, God, I got to go to my store, pick something up. Can't pick up the Kickstarter stuff, so what can they buy right now?
So the core rules are, all of this stuff is right now on our web store, and then it'll be in retail stores. It's currently in the channel, so it should be there very soon.
I believe much of this is also available in PDF through Drive-Thru RPG and RPG Now.
Yeah, all of this, because all of that's one bookshelf. So if you go to RPG Now, if that's where your account is, you'll see all the same stuff. But yeah, so the core rules, definitely. Now, you cannot get the PDF of this, but you will need...
What are we looking at here? It's a drama deck. No, Eric, no drama. We do not deal with drama here.
You are going to need the drama deck. So you're going to need one copy of this box at the table. This is really one of the things that... in the original Torg, this is one of the things that made the game unique and special, was this idea of the drama deck, which ran not only the initiative, but also interesting things that happened during scenes and combat. The drama deck has been expanded in Torg Eternity to not only do that, but also to have a player-facing Destiny deck where you have a hand of cards that you can play for different effects to support what you're doing and to collaborate mechanically and dramatically with the people around the table. And then there are also all the Cosm decks, and the Cosm decks are designed to reinforce the flavor of each Cosm. So there are things that usually have a very huge story effect, like, well, here's Dino attack because we're in the Living Land. I'm going to play this, and a dinosaur is going to attack us right now, but we're going to get a bunch of possibilities, which are sort of the Torg version of fate tokens or whatever you might see in another...
Bennies.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to give us a lot of support, but it's also going to make something really interesting happen. There are, in the Destiny and Cosm decks, there's things like Nemesis. I'm going to pick that NPC, and we're now Nemesis. And that has both mechanical and story effect, and so there's a lot of stuff that it fuels. So the drama deck is really essential for running the game, but it is also really a huge part of telling the story in Torg Eternity.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter then. So it's the Living Land. Is it just that supplement, or are there additional stretch goals or add-ons or anything else like that?
Well, it's actually multi-component in the sense that, of course, it has the Living Land, which is a cosm, as they call it, a reality that's imprinted. So it goes very deep into that, and there's definitely stretch goals. So to put things in perspective, a couple days ago when I was looking at things, we funded in 21 minutes. So we had already hit 50,000 in less than 3 hours, and we've broken 37 stretch goals so far.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff for people. I mean, a lot, which is good. But one of the things that we did is, in the first Kickstarter, we had this all-in cargo box, and it was super popular, and everybody loved it, and everybody got it. I mean, there are fans who did box openings on their own because they were so pumped, and which is great. But the problem was after that was done, there was a lot of, oh man, I missed it. So we made a conscious decision to bring it back. And when we brought it back, whoever gets it also gets all of the stretch goals that they missed out on because they didn't know about the first.
Nice.
Yeah, so, we feel that was the right thing to do. It was kind of a, that people should have that opportunity. So really they can get into the game brand new. They can get, if they're into it, they know what they want. They can get into a full meal deal with the Living Land and other features, or they can do both.
They get a meal with it too?
Well, it's a flip of a coin. You get a meal, or because there's dinosaurs, you could be a meal.
There you go, okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a second here. We're going to actually take a look at the video from the current Kickstarter for Torg the Living Land. So that looks pretty cool. That looks really intriguing. And I'll be the first to admit, I have not seen any of your products close up until now. I'm actually seeing some of the books and everything, but I have not actually seen anything but the covers at the moment. So I know we're going to take care of that in the future. So we've got Torg, the Living Land Kickstarter going on right now. You've got a project on the horizon that a lot of people are very, very excited about. And I was going to say, Eric's actually giving a clue here of what it is, which is very bizarre because, okay, so you're wearing, for Wrath and Glory, which is going to be the Warhammer 40K role-playing game, so you are actually plugging your company, whereas Ian is wearing a Miskatonic University shirt, and I don't believe you are involved with any Lovecraftian role-playing games or tabletop gaming, are you?
Oh no, that's absolutely true. You know, I'm an alumni, and so of course I'm proud. No, one of the I love this shirt. I am a big Cthulhu fan. As everybody knows that who knows me. But actually, I got this one specifically. I got from Off-World Designs. They're Off-World
Design.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with them. Yeah, and they're local. They're out of Chicago. They're out of the Chicago area. I got a bunch of their T-shirts. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, no.
In fact, I've got a Miskatonic University T-shirt from them.
Yeah.
So that'll be $20 as a plug. Thanks. Just, I'll send my PayPal address to you guys.
Yeah. So I mean, they're a good example of companies that put out great products. There's a lot of great products companies out there. One of the things that's fun, I've done this with them before.
So are you a shareholder? Is this where you're going?
I'm a fanboy, honestly. Really, and actually we're gonna, this will be the first you guys know about it. That's depending on when this gets aired. But we actually worked on
2019 is my plan.
Yeah.
Mid-2019?
Mid-20, yeah, that makes sense. We actually worked out a deal with them. So they're producing one of their high-quality T-shirts for a Kickstarter. But it's not an add-on. It's a freebie surprise, and the people that can get it, they get a coupon, so they get it at cost. So instead of paying $22,
it's not free then. That's a cost.
Free. Yeah.
You said it was freebie.
Well, it's a free Kickstarter.
So is that how your company operates? A little bait and switch here, Ian? Is this what's going on?
Well, it's just like these things. We can download for free, but once you're in it, if you want the good sword, So no, it's a great. It's going to be.
Oh, so they got like an iron-on transfer for free. Like in the '70s, they could take a white T-shirt and iron it on, but they could get a really cool T-shirt at cost.
Well, actually, it's even better than that. It's a high-quality T-shirt that you don't want to take off, and then you can't take it off.
Ever?
Well, if you pay a certain amount, they'll tell you how to get the shirt off.
That's like breaking one of my core convention attendance rules. Is bathe and change your clothing, and you're telling people you're going to wear this shirt for the rest of your life. Is it like a symbiote or something? It's like Venom.
I read comic books. I know how what works.
Sure, yeah, right.
Oh.
All right, so we were talking about Torg. Now let's talk a little bit about Warhammer 40K. Mm-hmm. Because for Ulisses, it's going to be like printing money, because I know a lot of people are really excited because the license is no longer with Fantasy Flight Games. People want their 40K. They need their fix. It's like heroin to them. When is that going to arrive on the scene, and what can people expect?
Well, we're going to have a pre-sale this summer, and that's going to be
free T-shirts. Free T-shirts.
We'll see. Probably. Yeah, probably. So there will be a pre-sale that'll cover all of the Wave 1 products. Not all of them will be... so the plan will be that pre-sale will be the earliest way for you to start purchasing them, and then we'll deliver them directly to you for anybody who's in on that pre-sale. And then the very first time that people will be able to hold the book in their hands will be at Gen Con this year. So
this Gen Con, so it will be a Gen Con release?
Yes. So just the core book will be at Gen Con. The other products will be sort of coming after that. So anybody in on the pre-sale, you'll get all your stuff after Gen Con and that sort of thing. We're looking at hopefully being able to have a way for people to grab just the book part at Gen Con. So that is something we're hoping to do.
Where they'll be able to pre-order and then pick it up at Gen Con?
That's the hope, yeah. It's some logistics that we have to work out, but we do think that we can manage that. And otherwise, the other things to keep an eye out for are the first opportunity to grab the Quick Start will be Free RPG Day. So we are participating in that, and it's a really I'm pretty amazed at what they've put together. It's not a dinky little thing like you normally see at Free RPG.
A lot of Free RPG Day stuff.
This is a pretty hefty product.
We would only throw this adventure in the trash, but it's Free RPG Day. I guess we'll give it away.
Yeah, no, this is something that we're actually intending to sell. Not super expensive, but we'll be selling after Free RPG Day. So getting it at Free RPG Day will be a big deal. And also related to that, because it's the same weekend. The very first opportunity for people to participate in public demos will be at Origins this year. Yeah, so we'll have Ross Watson, Stephen Rhodes, and Gwendolyn Reichel, all who are all writers. Ross is the main developer, and they're all writers on the first wave, and so they're going to be running the demos at Origins.
Nice. Okay, so here's a question I would have, and maybe it's also a bit of advice. So the core book is going to be available at Gen Con. Are you going to make sure that you have enough product for Gen Con? And if I may suggest, will you have a limit of how many copies will be sold each day? Because, unfortunately, last year, Starfinder was, I don't want to say public relations disaster for Paizo. I don't mean that. But it did not reflect well on them because, number one, they printed more copies of that than anything they ever had. But they sold them all on the first day, so everybody who had a Saturday pass, Friday pass, Sunday pass were very upset because there wasn't anything.
Yeah, that's part of what we're still figuring out logistically. The main thing for us to work out first is how to get the pre-sale purchasers their copies, which will probably be somewhere away from the booth. That's part of what we have to figure out. But our booth is not.
We'll have to go to LaPorte.
Yeah, we don't have anything.
They don't get to pick it up in Indy. They got to go to LaPorte, Indiana.
Right, exactly. We're gonna send you to Muncie, but the big thing is we just don't have the kind of space that we would need to have those anywhere near what Paizo had in terms of lines. So yeah, very likely we would be limiting sales per day. But we're going to do our best to have a ton of product. Obviously, it's several months out. We're going to do our best. We can't predict everything that's going to happen, but that's our intention. And yeah, definitely it's something we want to do.
One other question I would have about Wrath and Glory is, I know a lot of folks who had purchased the Fantasy Flight Games series of books are probably curious, is this going to be another system where it's like, well, if I want to play this aspect of the 40K universe, I have to buy this series of books, or if I want to play this aspect, I have to go buy this entire other series of books, or is it all going to be just one system?
Right, so that was definitely a huge thing that Ross Watson focused on when he was doing the design, is that he wanted something that would stay consistent throughout all of the different product pieces of the line. So
it's one thing to buy a source book. It's something else to have to buy an entire core book with the same rules you already own all over again.
Yeah, so I can't give much information about what's coming in the future waves, but I can tell you we've already revealed that the core rules includes rules for certainly Empire, and including Space Marines and Commissars and Skitarii, which is kind of exciting. And then we've also got Orcs and Eldar in the first book. So there's a ton of variety even in the first book, so you can get a sense of where we're going from here.
Last question I would have about 40K is, for those who already own a bunch of FFG product over the years, what incentive do they have to pick up a brand new system?
Yeah, that actually was one of the things that I asked when I came on board with Ulisses. Like, well, I own a ton of these Dark Heresy things and blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the things that's huge in this is the for those who are into the miniatures game, really for some levels, the first time ever, Games Workshop has now changed the universe. There's a giant rift, and you can't get there from here anymore, including getting back to the core part of the Imperium. And what's happened is on the other side, everybody's stuck. And so now new alliances are happening that never would have happened before. So in our
Dogs and cats living together.
yes, exactly. So in that part, it legitimately, with keeping with the lore and the fluff and all of that kind of stuff, like I said, there's alliances that never would have possible. So you can be an Imperial Guard, and you can be a Space Marine, and you can be things I can't talk about quite yet, all in the same group if, that's what your Game Master wants to do. And which is, I've ran it, I played it, and it was amazing.
So a lot of inspiration from the castaways on Gilligan's Island.
Yes, except we haven't found the blonde, really good-looking race, but I'm sure, we can work something out with them.
That's in a supplement later on down the road.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So most people would probably know Ulisses spiel mainly, probably not Ulisses North America, from the most popular role-playing game in Germany for the last, 3 decades or so, and that would be The Dark Eye.
Yes. Yeah, The Dark Eye is one of the best kept secrets of North America because
it wasn't available in English for a long time.
Yeah, and that kind of,
hurts.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, if we produce an amazing car, which Germany is very famous for, but unless you can read the manual in German, you can't drive it. Yeah, that's not going to sell too well, right?
Or if you're not going to import it,
yeah.
You can't drive it.
Yeah, both are true. So that was really one of the great things about The Dark Eye coming in English. And for myself, I actually encountered it before I had anything to do with the company. And like a lot of people, I play the mainstream role-playing games. And so, of course, I was going, why would I even care? And, I happened to be at a con and got a chance to try it. Why not? I'll try it out. And I was really surprised how fun it was. It's more sophisticated. It's like easier to get into, easier to play, makes more sense, and I got to enjoy it.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. So
I have never actually seen the core. I haven't seen, as I said before, all I've seen are covers.
Well, why don't we? So right off the bat too, because the game has been around for 30 years.
Yes.
Lots of support right off the gate.
There's tons of content, and wasn't one of the Kickstarters to bring a lot of that content to the U.S.?
Yeah, definitely. We've actually had several different Dark Eye Kickstarters so far. So the first one was the core rules and some of the accessory material, especially some of the early adventures to just get people into it. And then we later had one for the Aventuria Almanac, which then did very well, but also one of the big things was just to show the kind of support that it has in Germany. We were nominated for an Emmy this year and this last year, and we actually won a silver Emmy. And we definitely want to show the appreciation to just the dedication of the European fans, because they certainly were very a huge part of making that happen, and we really appreciate that. So,
one of the things that makes The Dark Eye unique is, like you mentioned, 30 years in a setting that is like a fantasy Europe. Totally immersive. And when Marcus and I were talking about it, he says, well, it's easier to do that, like have a castle, when you can walk out your door and see a castle. And I go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But the other thing that's
it's not that big a stretch of imagination at that point.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I noticed. It was, you really feel like you're in a fantasy Europe, like if Europe had spells, that kind of thing. This is
that is sort of the European role-playing niche, is where it's most European fantasy RPGs do sort of play a dark age Europe, is kind of the setting from my experience.
Well, that's true. There definitely is that as a common theme, but it doesn't go.
It's usually like a more realistic, a little grittier than, it's usually not high fantasy.
Yeah, this has a definite high fantasy, but it's not fantastical creatures like, how would that, you look at it and you go, a floating head, how would that work, in an ecology setting. But the other thing is, there's a lot of great books out there, and I'm not knocking the others, but we do European standard printing. and books, and we don't charge any different. So there's no difference than anybody else's game. But I mean, I don't know if a camera can pick this up.
Well, we're going to actually show some footage, but yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about the almanac.
Everything from the cover with having the popping up, spot UV and things like that, to the layout and the artwork. Right. Even little, things that I noticed is bookmarks. You got 2 bookmarks. I mean, if anybody's ever GM'd, bookmarks are pretty critical, and just lots and lots of little
bookmarks in the PDF, right?
Yeah. So
thanks for not bookmarking this PDF.
Yeah. So there, it's just a bunch of little quality things that add up to you feel like you've got something that's substantial because you have something substantial. So
I can tell just taking a peek through too, just the weight of the paper and the pages and stuff like that. A lot sharper, a lot crisper feel than. And I'm not knocking other companies, but yeah, than a lot of other RPG products that are, just not printed to European standards, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, we print in Europe, so we get that. It's part of what happens, and it's a nice feature. It feels good. The way I look at it, and again, I was introduced as a consumer before I was with the company. Is I felt like a little more.
You enjoyed this so much, you bought the company. I get it. I remember that commercial.
The Gillette one, yes, for sure. But I felt respected by that. I mean, it's like, they care enough about me to make it really good.
As a consumer.
Yeah, as a consumer. So,
You weren't taken for granted, like, unfortunately, some companies do.
Yeah, we're earning our business here for sure. Because, how many of you guys know Ulisses Spiel? Yeah, well, nobody. Unless you're German, and then everybody.
I was going to say, in Germany, everyone would know. Because it's not, if I understand or remember correctly, it's not just role-playing games. There's a lot of German language board games that Ulisses Spiel releases.
Yeah. Well, in fact, it's, again, because Americans pay attention to Americans, it's our culture, Ulisses Spiel actually is the #1 printer a publisher of role-playing games in active print in the whole world. I mean, overall, Asmodee, anybody you can think of, because if you actually look, we print and support all the role. I mean, we kind of have a monopoly over there, which is nice.
Exactly right.
So, it's great. I mean, so we also have, as a byproduct of that, of course, is excellent systems in place. So now what's great is North America has that now too. So we print in Europe, but we have American game designers who understand what we like. So
and a warehouse here in America.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got our own original games, but same standards.
All right, gentlemen, any final words that you'd like to share with the audience about Ulisses North America or upcoming products or anything?
Sure. Clearly we're here to stay, and we are investing heavily.
You're going to stay here at C2E2? I think they're going to ask you to leave.
Well, until I go over to the Hyatt, and then they'll ask me to stay. But we've got great titles that were super popular, like Torg Eternity. People loved it, freaked out that it was back again. And, we're excited about those people, obviously, but a lot of new people are coming to that product line and that IP and that world. And, we want people to know about that, because that's why part of why we wanted, like a lot of people complain, hey, I didn't know about this Kickstarter. So we made sure that the new Kickstarter that's actively going now for Torg Eternity is there. And, Warhammer 40,000 Roleplay, Wrath and Glory is, if you're into that kind of universe, it's the best. Plus, it's actually a good game. You don't have to be somebody who loves the universe and then
get into it.
Yeah, and then have a mediocre mechanic behind it. So this is like, it truly is best. And that's what we're committed to. We're going to have many different lines that people will be seeing over the next 2 years. And our philosophy is there's not one size of role-playing game that fits everybody. Right. And so if you don't, I'm not into this universe or this style,
check out something else.
Yeah, as long as it's a Ulisses North America product, that's all I ask.
Any final thoughts from you, Eric?
Yeah, I'd just like to specifically say thank you to our awesome supporters on the Kickstarter so far. We've just been blown away by how well it's been running. As far as it's basically a supplement Kickstarter, and it's performing really well. We're so happy with the enthusiasm that we're seeing, the excitement, and we just want to say thank you again.
All right, well, thanks for taking some time out here at C2E2 to talk all things Ulisses North America. And I'm sure we'll see you at Gen Con and Origins.
Yeah, no, and thank you for the same thing. I mean, Jeff, I appreciate it. You guys really do a bang up.
Well, your check did clear, so we're all good.
Yeah. I thought we paid in small unmarked bills. Oh, we did both? What?
Oh, all dollar bills are just unmarked. Talking about small. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
And there you have my interview with Ian and Eric from Ulysses North America. Boy, we sure did talk about a lot of stuff too. So there is a bunch of stuff on the horizon. There is the Living Lands Kickstarter that's going on right now, and it will run through April 24th. So if you're a fan of Torg Eternity, you probably want to jump in on that. And of course, we talked a bit about the Dark Eye, as well as the upcoming Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory. Pretty sweet. So I have to admit, while I was sitting here and that the interview was playing, I was actually taking a peek at the Torg Eternity core book, because I have received some PDFs from Ulysses North America. So I was actually taking a peek at the core book. So I'm not too far into it just yet. But as I mentioned, there will be some Ulysses North America books that will be arriving tomorrow. So as I mentioned before, pretty sure we'll be taking a nice deep delve into the Torg Eternity core book on Thursday. All right, so there you have it. That is today's show. As I mentioned before, I'll remind you again, there is no show tomorrow, but I will be back on Thursday. So when you're not watching the gaming, or I should say, when you're not watching the Daily Dope, slap. Geez, see, that's what happens. I start zoning out when I'm sitting here reading the PDF as I'm sharing that interview. Anyway, when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I will be back on Thursday. So until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Have a great Wednesday. And thanks so much for watching.